Over 100 years back, in present-day Turkey, there was a fight between the two kingdoms of Lydians and the Medes. This fight was for 5 years, but in the 6th year, something special happened. The sky turned completely dark, and boom, the sun had vanished. Both of the kingdoms thought that this was a divine intervention, and they made their children marry each other. But many years later, now NASA has approved that this story is true and that it was not a divine intervention, but it was a solar eclipse. So yes, I'm not here to tell you any story, but I'm here to tell you about the types of eclipses. So what happened in Turkey was magic, or even better, science. And this can be explained by the use of science. So, when any celestial bodies like the moon or the planets, they come in the way of the sun, they form a shadow. And when any other planet or moon, it comes into the shadow which was formed, it is called as an eclipse. We all know that the earth revolves around the sun and takes 1 year to do so. And now think that this is the moon. The moon takes 1 month while it revolves around the earth. Now, you may think if the moon is revolving around the earth, at some point it may come in front of the earth, which will give you a solar eclipse. So, if the earth and the moon share the same plane of revolution, then we should get a solar eclipse every new moon. But we don't. And a lunar eclipse every full moon. But we don't get that also. This is because the orbit on which the moon circles around the earth is not straight. It is tilted 5 degrees. So this means that the moon will be 5 degrees above or below the sun at a particular time. But sometimes it is at the right place at the right time. And at this time, we get a solar eclipse. So you can see this pink orbit of the moon as tilted at 5 degrees with the orbit of the earth. And you can see that when these two orbits, when they cross each other at 2 points, these 2 points are called as the lunar nodes. And when they come in the straight line, a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse is formed. This is a model that I have made so that you can understand how eclipses happen. This is the sun, this is the moon, and this is the earth. So now you can see that the moon has come in the perfect line, and you can see that it has come between the sun and the earth, and that it is casting its shadow on the earth. And you can see that when the moon starts to move, it is called as part of the eclipse. And now when the moon completely goes behind the earth is casting its shadow on the moon. And the earth has come between the sun and the moon, and this is called as lunar eclipse. So this is my diagram of the solar eclipse. This is the sun, this is the moon, and this is the earth. Now you can see that the moon has come in the way of the sun. So the sun rays, they're coming over here, and the moon is casting its shadow on the earth. And this really dark part that you can see, it is called as umbra. And umbra is a Latin word, and it means shadow. And this little lighter part that you can see is penumbra. And pen means almost. And umbra means shadow. So almost shadow. See, so this is the sun and this is the moon. So now the question arises that something as small as the moon can cover the sun. How can this be possible? So from Earth, the sun appears small. Even though the sun is 400 times larger than the moon, but it is even 400 times further away from the earth. This makes it seem smaller. And that is why the moon can cover the sun. Now let me tell you how this happens. So here is the moon covering the sun. So you can see that first there will be a slight dip. Then there will be a thick crescent. Then there will be a thinner crescent. And then there will be a thinner crescent. And then the moon, at the point, it will start to look like a diamond ring, and then the moon will completely cover the sun, and this is called as the total solar eclipse. sometimes the moon is further away from the earth, and it cannot completely cover the sun, which gives an annular ring formed behind the moon. So you can see that a thin crescent is being formed, then a thinner one, and then the moon is completely covering the sun. And now you can see that the sun's corona is there, which is the atmosphere of the sun, and then you can see that there are the beads, and then you can see that there is a diamond ring which is coming. A word of precaution that you should never look at a solar eclipse with your bare eyes, and you should not even use the normal glares that we find. There are special glasses which protect our eyes from UV rays. While we are watching the lunar eclipse, we can watch it with naked bare eyes, because we are not looking at the sun, we are looking at the moon. And one more difference between solar and lunar eclipse is that solar eclipse only happens at particular areas at particular time, but lunar eclipse happens in every area which is facing the moon. So that is why I have seen many lunar eclipses but never solar eclipses, because I've never been in the right place at the right time. So this is a total lunar eclipse, and you can see that the moon is red. This happens because the earth, it filters all the blue lights and only lets the red light to pass through. So you can see that this is the sun, this is the earth, and this is the moon. So like in solar eclipse, the moon came in between of the sun and the earth. In lunar eclipse, the earth comes in between of the sun and the moon. And you can see that even in lunar eclipse there is umbra and penumbra. This diagram is a total lunar eclipse, and you can see that the moon is red in color, and if this would be partial, the moon could be dark red, or it could be charcoal grey. So you can see that some part of the moon is dark and some part is receiving light, and this is the partial lunar eclipse. So now you can see that the moon is now making a complete lunar eclipse. So guys, an eclipse is a really beautiful phenomena, and please don't believe any of the stories which are based on it. Just believe the magic of science and not